matchup, so I'm pretty confident I know exactly how Wam is gonna play this. Now, the interesting thing is how is Kasva gonna play this? Now, that's what interests me.
So run us through the way that Wam's typically going to play this. Is this going to be one of those kind of 2 TC builds? Is it going to be the all-out aggression? Obviously, with a map like Frisian Marshes, you get a lot of forward spawning gold, so there is an opportunity to outpost rush here.
I already like how Kasva opened. Kasva opened with a Barak, and I think the only way to play against the Mongols, the way Wam is gonna play it, is with a Barak. I think Wam is gonna go for a Barak, make 1 or 2 towers with like 4, 6 spearmen, and then he will make some archers to make sure that the HRE stays in feudal, and then behind it he's just gonna go castle, lancers, relics, and then crossbows. Now, the only way to counter it, in my opinion, is by going for a Barak as the HRE, and Kasva is doing it.
All right, should be an exciting opening. I mean, one of the big issues HRE players have had is forfeiting their gold for 2 or 3 minutes, and I think you're right. Like the Rax is the logical go-to. It just feels like it slips by the wayside so often. I guess it's the gluttony of the HRE, right? You convince yourself that you'll be able to slip into feudal before you can get the pressure in place. And while that is often true, I guess the difference with this build is you keep the gold accessible, so you can still go for a very fast castle timing.
Yep, if the Mongol player stops you from gathering the gold, him by using stone in order to get those extra spears out, he's gonna get castellates in a really fast timing, and you will be stuck in feudal, because especially in this map, if you check the gold mines, all of them are kind of forward.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get a spawn where you have a safe gold mine on this map. So if your opponent gets 1 or 2 towers, and if he makes one, he will not stop at one. He will make a second one, maybe even a third one. We will not gather gold. And when you do, your opponent will already be in castle age.
And we've seen some civs try to react to this play by pulling villagers to torch down the outpost attempt, right? The most notable one is usually the Delhi. I guess the difference here to point out is that the HRE is the most efficient civ in terms of gathering rates per villager. So it's actually more value to get a Rax and push a few spearmen than to idle all your villagers for 20, 30 seconds, because they're not just gathering at a rate of like the 1 true rate, right? They're gathering that 1 times 1.4 because of the Holy Inspiration.
Can you repeat that?
Sorry, I done it wrong with the math. So the gathering rates are 40% better, right? By them being 40% better, it feels more inefficient to pull villagers to reactive early outpost plays when you're HRE compared to any other civ.
Yes, but then again, if the outpost is being built, then you will be forced to do an unfavorable trade in order to take it down.
Yeah.
So you pretty much sacrifice eco in order to gain eco.
Yes, and the point I was making is HRE is the one that suffers more than anyone else from that exchange, because they have a 40% gathering rate buff that they're missing out on all that time they're idling villagers.
And then again, you might also think that if I can gather more than my opponent, why don't I invest that extra resources in order to have more than my opponent, in order to prevent him from forcing me to have my villagers attacking instead of working.
And that's the point, that you can more easily justify the sidestep into Rax compared to other civs, because you're inflating your eco. You have all this surplus eco over X minutes because of your gathering rates anyway. And, we can see how the Spearman already paying off up to 6. Another key detail here, I actually think to the best civs of dealing with this early aggression from the Mongols, HRE and Delhi, because both of them get access to healers at this early phase, means that he can have an inferior number of Spearmen, and he'll still be able to defend due to the healing.
And HRE should never stop making spears, because the more spears you make, the Mongol is also forced to make spears, but you can heal your spears, and the moment the HRE stops making spears, then you just push his over. He's forced to make towers.
Wham. That's the problem as well. You saw it there. It looks like a good move going in to finish the Prelate, but it means you're running past all the spears, maximum melee damage comes out, and Wham's plan has already fallen apart.
Yep. I totally love Kasva's position right now. Like, if he saves up the Prelate right now, I think that was an insane mistake sending the Prelate like this.
I think he forgot about the maneuver arrow. It looks like he might be saved by the outpost, though, so he garrisons it just in time. So still stays alive.
At the same time, 3 Spearmen almost going down. And Kasva can pretty much do whatever he wants right now. He can keep making spears because we know that Wam is forced to make spears, right? He
Yes.
cannot stop because the moment he stops, he loses his gold or ovo. And Kasva can just heal his spears and then start pushing. Or he can stop at 8 spears and get into the feudal, and then add a couple of men at arms, some archers, and then keep the pressure going.
I really feel like people were sleeping on the HRE as an answer to the Mongols for this, actually. Is it me, or did this really start to come into the picture as a counter with Kawasan? Because I feel like Kawasan was definitely the highlightable map where we saw a lot of people just getting into these mass spearman attacks in Dark Age.
In general, both China and HRE can make enough spears to defend against Mongol spears. And the thing is that you don't really know that your opponent is going spears. Like, let's say Wam has a lucky spawn, right? Where the gold is close and the stone is close. And you open spears, but he doesn't. You're behind instantly.
Yeah.
Like, you're really far behind. So it's really hard to just preemptively open spears unless you have a map that you know that if you get tower rust, you're gonna fall behind. Now, in this certain spawn, I think that if Kasva had a safe gold mine in between those two wood lines, he might not have decided to go for spears and
Got it.
instead just made a tower.
That's interesting. I was wondering if it was down to the spawn or down to the fact that you said you'd watched Wham's game and he'd done this twice already with the Mongols. So I was wondering if maybe Kasva checked some real there, so he was already suspicious. But I think you're right. Like, sometimes you see these generations and you see Mongol picked, you already know what's coming your way. There's no way to avoid it.
I've said that because Kasva is a reactive player.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't do standard things. He is reactive. He sees what he has. He tries to use everything that he has into his advantage. Wam is exactly the other part. Wam has a plan, and he's gonna do it. He doesn't really care about most things, but he will do his thing really well executed.
I think the other thing that's always been to Kasva's credit as well is especially, like, I'd say, like, the competitive Kasva's improved, because something I always had an issue with was like pub Kasva versus competitive Kasva. It felt like he wasn't fully unleashed. But when you do see him fully unleashed, that whole idea of reactionary gameplay, I'd say is one of the hardest pivoters, right? When he thinks something's the right call, he's willing to throw the entire game behind that move.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why sometimes he might sneak in some wins that you never expected him winning.
Yeah. It's the idea that he's focused on playing to win versus playing to survive, which I'm always a fan of. And I definitely think Dark Feudal Age lasting a lot longer in the current meta has enabled that type of playstyle more, because I would say micro can be a lot more impactful in these earlier fights, right? Because you can't just easily replace 20 or 30 troops lost like you could in the old Imperial Age meta.
Well, proper decisions can bypass micro. Like, you don't micro plays a big role only if you allowed it to. Like, for example, see Beastie, like the way he plays sometimes. Like, after a certain point of the game, he allows only Seeds micro to play a big part in the games. Like, all other type of micro is pretty much diminished by making walls, towers, skips. So it's like how you guide the game, where you guide the game, and you can avoid certain situations by taking the right decisions, which is really hard. Taking those decisions, it's really, really, really hard.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with these high level players where usually they're kind of looking for that double up. So, like, use the example of Beastie. I think the one that we're all familiar with is Shopping for Time, where he'll send horsemen or fast moving units who'll draw you to the backside and use that to get like more resources elsewhere. I think that's something that can be kind of tricky to wrap our heads around sometimes when we're just kind of sitting here spectating as kind of your average Joe. You know, a lot of these players, when they make a reaction in a game that's about counters, they're looking for a second value out of that. And I think that plays into the wider strategy, the macro play, and offsetting the micro you were talking about.
Hmm.
Well, looks like with the
Oh,
aggression
Kasva.
offset, Kasva is going to be going up first. But in fairness to him, Wam done a decent job of staying close and contesting this. And this is one big value you get, remember, on Frisian Marshes. If you're the only one who's likely to aggress, you can play onto those ponds for free.
I mean, it's really hard to contest map control against a Mongol player. I think only Rus and friends might be able to do that. But HRE, it's really hard, especially when your plan is to go castlades, right? How can you contest map control when you're going castlade? It's pretty much impossible. Did you see the archers?
Yeah.
He didn't need to do the archers, but
Yeah.
he did them nonetheless.
What
Because that's his plan. He always does it. At least in all the games that I've seen, he made 4 to 6 archers.
does it make sense now that you see him outposting up the lakes, whereas otherwise it would feel like a
Yeah,
complete
like
waste?
as I said, that's his plan. Like he wasn't being pressured, but his plan is to do exactly this thing to the HRE, and it's working.
Now, we have to keep in mind that although you can see Kasva quickly running out of sheep, the HRE is a decent sieve at these farm transitions very early on because of how efficient each farm is. Having said that, it is still going to set him back. So despite the fact Kasva does get to his castle age, we have to remember that Wam is quickly catching up, probably only a few seconds away from the step readout complete, at which stage he's going to have Lancers in the mid-map, and now he has 4 Yam networks to utilize.
Yeah, and as long as he is able to stop the HRE from getting the second and the third relic, he should be in a really, really good position. And I think he will be able to do that. Like, Kasva really will struggle to get at least 1 relic.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to say. It's not about the second and third. I think at this point, the first seems like quite the stretch for Kasva, and all because Wam got this play into archers. It just wasn't read by Kaz.
And that's why in this map in particular, as an HRE, I would prefer to go second town center and then castle, because that kind of guarantees you 1 relic. And especially how this game went, where Kasva was able to get the map control with the early spears for a bit, for a small period of time, he could easily have transitioned into a second town center next to those 3 fish spawns, and would also secure him the relic.
No, I think that's fair. I think there's a lot of value in HRE multi-TC for a lot of maps at the moment that maybe isn't being explored anymore, because it feels like a lot of players have noticed the new prelate-inspired build with knights, and they just want to rush towards that as quickly as possible, which makes sense, because when you see it in action, I mean, the mass prelates plus knights can actually even hold off spears, which are meant to counter them.
Yeah, and you can always heal your units, which is like I was always against healing in this game. Like it's currently too strong, way too strong.
Yeah, all we have to do to remember how delicate of a balancing act it is think back to Delhi herbal medicine days. And, that was not fun for anyone other than the filthy Delhi spammers.
Yeah, it was a bad period.
The dark days.
The dark days.
You didn't want to, but you had to play it. And wait,
Actually,
what?
no.
Kaz? Okay, that is cheeky from Wam. He's like, well, I actually don't need to directly take the Lancers. I can just use the arrow slits. Looks like he'll still get away with the relic at the end, or maybe not. There is 1 Lancer on the way. He might be able to snipe out another prelate, but it does feel like Kasva will eventually get this 1 relic.
Yeah, but I think, yeah, it went down. He went down.
Wait, was Kasva trying to body block with the villagers there?
Yeah. He basically tried to take the charge on the villager.
Ambitious. Didn't quite work out for him. Maybe it would have if he'd remembered something you said you forget quite a bit, or used to. No wheelbarrow.
I don't know. I will still forget, because most of the times with my playstyle, I never stay under a keep. I usually make the keep, and that keep pretty much means that I don't have to have my army there.
Wait, for wheelbarrow?
Oh, I thought you meant the medicine thing.
Oh, no. I mean, I was like, wait, what? No. The wheelbarrow, because Kasva only just got it. Usually the HRE get it on delay, because if he'd had it there, he probably could have shuffled to block the charge, right?
Yes, now I get my wheelbarrow with all sieves except English early, kinda early. With English though, I do not get it early.
It's interesting actually, because a lot of people still go for early English wheelbarrow.
I think it's really bad.
What, because you don't move your economy much?
Because you're farming.
Yeah.
Like when you have like 60% of your villagers farming, you don't want wheelbarrow. It delays everything.
Agreed. And there are some maps where you go deers, but the deers, like that's usually when you're going for a secondary TC, right? So once again, your villagers they don't need to move much.
Yes.
Well, not going to see too many farms on this map at this rate. Of course, Wam can't build them as the Mongols, but on the other side, we have to remember that Kasva is still playing an incredibly condensed HRE. The good news for him, decent amount of knights and spears, Bad news is that Wam is still somewhat competing due to the fact that he's playing off of fishing and now has also gone for his secondary TC as the Mongols.
Wam is fishing, but look at the food income.
It's, yeah, it's pretty high.
HRE, HRE.
Just HRE things, as it always is. And I wonder, I think, yeah, keep in mind, I think the TC just got built, so it's going to be a little bit more comparative, but it's the buff. The radius, like, affecting everything back here. The only issue for Kasva in the next probably 3 minutes is that he doesn't really have the room to spread out. So there is going to come a time where he needs to take a fortuitous fight, or Wam with mass knights can probably just punish him. He's trying to sneak in. He's getting tempted. I think, like, does it feel like Wam's probing a bit too hard here? Because it feels more important to just have the heavy knight lead and box your opponent in, right?
Yeah, like those. If you have more knights than your opponent and you have good vision of the map, your opponent can. Most of the times, he won't be able to leave his base unless he's crazy and he just sends some knights randomly to raid you. But you can use that towards your advantage by forcing some fights.
I mean,
But in general, yeah, the knights outside of your base is something scary. Just like now, Kasva just left his base.
Yeah, this is what I said. This is kind of the crazy part. Is like by Wam kind of maybe getting a little bit too escalatory with the way he's trying to pressure. He's now lost knight count, and Kasva's just bled out. He's everywhere. He's taking relics. He's now diving into the eco. And remember, this is one of the big weaknesses. This is why I think a lot of people are maybe kind of struggling to crack the Mongol code right now. Is if you have to defend, you die as this Civ.
Yeah, Mongols don't want to defend. All of your eco is in two places. That's all of your eco. Under your town center and on your step right out. Most of the times you don't have villagers anywhere else on the map. Most of the times. In this map, obviously, you're PC.
Wololo, just in time. And Wam, although he's outnumbered, he's at least trying to make the best of the situation. We can see him now converting across into crossbows. Hasn't really been able to deny away that many relics. Kaz are about to get the second one in, and there is a concern that this will begin to snowball. We do have to remember the HRE will slowly escalate that prelate count, and by doing so, they'll have a way to make these knights live forever via the healing.
Yeah, and something that I don't see from Wam so far is the classical timing push where you go some lancers and then you transition into mass crossbows and seeds. Actually, never mind. There they are.
Yes, the crossbows have been waiting a long time. He's starting to escalate, but I get what you're talking about. The timing feels quite delayed. I mean, we're 18 minutes in, and Kasva's starting to flesh out that farmland supply on the backside. So there is now a risk that by the time Wam arrives in the base, Kasva could be cracking Imperial.
I think Kasva shouldn't go Imperial, though.
It is a bit greedy, but...
Yeah, it's a bit greedy right now. Like, you know it's coming.
Exactly. He's an HRE player. If there's one thing they always want to do.
But I guess you actually kind of want to, now that I'm thinking about it, because you want to take down the trebs, the counterweight trebs, right? That's the only thing that can actually put pressure in your base. And the only way to do it is actually with a Culverin.
No, that's a fair point. Sorry, I'm chuckling at the prelate forgetting what his duties were here. But you're right, because someone that's easy to forget, most matchups, like, you can't get trebuchets with culverins. But when you're up against the Mongols, they have traction trebuchets. They're only 13 tower range, culverins are 12. So you can very easily catch them off guard and snipe them.
Yeah, and I think that actually a well-timed Imperial with just a single Culverin can actually counter this, and a few bombard towers.
And then just a slow crawl out across your opponent's base, because sometimes it's easy to forget on Frisian Marshes with all the combat in the center and south side. It's a short run to your opponent's base, just through one stealth forest. And if you can quickly escalate, yes, you can actually overwhelm. And that's exactly what Kaz is looking to do. Siege Workshop already prepped, aware of what's coming. He'll have the culverins to address it. Wam, well, the problem here is he went mass crossbows, which means he has no way of dealing with this long-range siege.
He actually has no way on dealing with towers. That's the thing. Like, the only thing that can kill towers is the counterweight trebs. But if there are Culverins, then there's no counterweight trebs. And that will give an insane advantage to Kasva.
No, I mean,
I really like Kasva's position right now. I really like it. Like, if nothing happens in the next 3 minutes, that put Kasva in a really awkward position, then I think Kasva might have a really good shot in this game.
Now, the thing is, does Wam even try to go in for the all siege, or does he play differently here? Because you know what you're up against. You mentioned those traction trebuchets and go for, but they're not going to have the tower range to do any serious damage. Looks like he is already now building them, and I'm feeling uncomfortable with this timing for Wam. This could quickly snowball in favor of Kasva.
No culverins are being made right now, though. And a culverin is a very expensive unit.
He's being a greedy boy. He's actually getting the upgrade for Horseman first.
He's gonna need it. He's going to need it against the crossbows. That's the only thing that can kill crossbows is Horseman in really good numbers.
True.
Everything else pretty much fails.
Like, you could play Mangoes yourself, but yeah, you're already struggling to get together the expensive bank to go into culverins. So, you know, you might as well prep for the cheap bang for buck unit, which only costs food and wood.
Yeah, SN8 right now, the only thing that you're afraid of is a push that might kill you. And the only thing that can do that is exactly what's happening right now. Your opponent trapping you down. So you only need make sure that you have a culverin and something and units to protect your culverin.
Wow.
And that means some bobber towers.
And instead, Kasva's being a greedy boy. He's going for everything else first. You can see him get the Riveted Chainmail upgrade for his Spearman. Still no culverin though. It's kind of surprising because there's very limited troops that Wam could dive that culverin with. I guess something we have to remember is that the HRE can delay this siege for quite a while. The traction trebuchets don't hit as hard as the big brothers, the counterweights, and then there is also emergency repairs to worry about.
Yeah, and also Wam is controlling both of the sacred sites, right? So he needs to apply pressure without committing in order to buy himself time and control the sacred sites till the end.
Uh-oh. Wraparound coming in. Wam may have to go home to address this, and a lot of his lancers are on the edge of the abyss looking in, which is concerning because that culverin now does come out. There's nothing that Wam can do to get rid of it.
Oh, those knights inside the main base of Wam can be so brutal.
Especially on that wood line they're about to assault. This is going to get ugly fast. It's going to retreat away. Now, this is the brilliant part of what Kasva's done here. Not only is the wood line here, but the food is here as well. That's a heavy hit into the resource that's most critical for Wam. If he hasn't got food, he can't replace the losses on the front line. It means he's going to struggle to actually combat with Lancers. Able to come back with the crossbow in the meantime. But idle time still achieved, and much needed time as Kasva is in the middle of transition to Horseman Spear.
If Kasva didn't lose those knights, he could just let them outside of Wam space and he could trap so many crossbowmen there.
It did feel a little bit like overcommittal, right? Like you see all the villages, you feel like you should get them, but sometimes it's very easy to forget there's Yam and there's also Wheelbarrow you have to worry about. So it's incredibly difficult for even cavalry to catch Mongol villagers in that situation.
And there is the Master Culverin.
The king on his cannon. And Kasva not looking like a king right now. You wouldn't believe he's in Imperial Age if you just looked at the dots next to all of his units. Nothing has been upgraded into elite status yet. Wam is still on course for his timing here. He repairs, just feels wasted like this. Outpost is going to go down, and I'm getting a bad feeling for Kasva here, mister. I mean, does it feel like he'll be able to get enough troops together to defend here?
This game will all come to the Kasva Exodus. He will come out, there will be a fight, and that will pretty much determine who's gonna win this game. Not having the Culverin in the front with the keep, because he could have made a keep.
Yeah. Like, we're back onto this subject again. this is Mister. By the end of this day, like you're gonna have clear stress marks everywhere on your forehead from a lack of
Take
keeps.
a moment and think about it. A keep costs 800 resources.
Yes.
How many resources do you need to counter the keep?
With the traction trebuchets, like quite a few, like 4, 5. I'd say 5 to be able to get through your
So
repairs.
you invest 800 resources, the cost of 3.5 knights.
Yeah.
And then for your opponent to counter it, he has to invest 3 times those resources. And those resources are units to kill buildings. So he ends up with, let's say, 2,000 resources worth of units that they cannot kill units.
Yeah.
That's like a really good trade. You want to do that.
Do you think for HRE players, they get baited into the idea of outposts, though, because of cannon emplacements with their Imperial Rush?
You can make a keep and then have an outpost behind the keep with a cannon emplacement, but
Yeah.
the keep is really important, in my opinion.
Yeah, I understand the desire to get like outpost spam going, but if you don't have something to deter siege, then you're just going to lose them, as we've been seeing. And now the fight's going to come out. Kasva can't wait any longer. Crossbow can stand their ground, and look at that. Using the static defenses to body block. Limited troops getting through here, and the horsemen are quickly fallen. Spearmen will not be able to take this fight on their own. The mangonels are completely unanswered. Kasva at risk of losing the army. And Wam, you can see the patience. Lancers waiting on the flank, not needing to commit to the fight because the crossbows are reigning supreme. Kasva will lose half the army and now has no clear answer to the mangonels, especially considering the culverins are open. There's that keep you want, mister. But it's very late. Very late.
That was too early. He came out of his base too early, especially when he got the culverins. The moment he got the culverins, he didn't need to leave his base.
The crazy part is it looked like he was prepping Langsneck. I mean, I like this idea if you wait for the Langsneck, but he just didn't. He built 2, and he'd already gone in for the fight. And now this keep is a please don't kill me keep. Not a I'm confident I can live here. There's still 3 trebuchets available for Wam. He can escalate to 4, maybe 5, but in the meantime, Lancers are going to dive in as they're given an opportunity. Crossbows are also going to follow suit. It's time to idle the HRE economy.
And Wam is ready for Imperial. Wam is also ready to get into the Imperial Age.
And he's getting a good trade in the base while he's doing so. I mean, you see that eco lead to Kasva start to build up. Can easily shrink now. Culverins are at least going to get an exchange. But it's kind of a big whoop-de-doo because it looks like the keep might still be going down. Kasva, I don't think he's clicked E-repairs yet. Okay, there we go. Came out just in time.
Yeah, but Kasva is not in a terrible position, though.
No, because Wam lost the entire army.
He didn't lose villagers, right?
Yeah. Like, are you surprised Wam committed to that dive? I'm still, like, trying to wrap my head around why the crossbows went in. I understand the lances.
Yeah, but and also something really important. I want you to check Wam's upgrades. Did you see what upgrade he lacks?
Oh, no.
Fierce armor upgrades. That means the town centers and towers pretty much wrecked all of his crossbowmen. Now, that was a big throw from Wam. Losing all of his crossbows like that, without killing villagers, because right now, even if he killed villagers, right? He killed 30 villagers. You have the Palace of Swabia to make up for the lost villagers.
Yes.
But I think that was a big mistake from Wam. He needed to make sure that the keep dies, and the moment the keep died, then he could get pressured on top of the production, not the villagers.
Now, what we have to keep in mind is Wam is 3 minutes away from a Sacred Site victory. It could be that he tunnel visioned that idea and felt like he needed to commit, but I agree. He could have kept up this pressure without going in. That being said, at the end of the day, Kasva is rebuilding the army, more or less from scratch. He's already up to 35 plus, but he needs to get on these sacred sites, and now a bigger concern arises. With the tech up in place, with Wam now Imperial, these outposts could easily have cannon emplacements. Although they don't. He doesn't know that yet, though.
Wam has half the army right now.
He's building, but he's building hand cannoneers. And hand cannoneers are actually unanswered here.
Actually, they are answered.
You feel
when they are in few numbers, when they are such a few numbers, they do not pose that big of a threat. The problem is when you have too many of them, and you know, in range units, when they're like clump up, it's really hard to surround. So that's when they really become to shine.
Gotcha. Do you not feel like there's just not enough horsemen to kill them though, and the spearmen aren't trading well enough? So they, although they're not like critical mass, there's enough that they're getting bang for buck.
He doesn't really need to kill the army. All he needs to do is buy himself time, get the keep, and then no sacred site victory anymore. And then suddenly you have 164 against 100, plus 50 villagers.
This is the problem right now. Wam didn't address it at all. He went all in. And actually, I get where you're coming from, because more than that, the fact there wasn't enough hand cannoneers, just do the maths on the cost of these. He built 14 of them. He could have afforded some siege, a bunch of horsemen and crossbows alongside it, and he probably would have had a better chance of holding the sacred site. So now Kasva's going to get the decap. Wam would be prevented his win condition.
The whole idea of Wam was focus on military, do a push, contain, and just kill him with that one push. Wam had around 50 crossbowmen, right? Now losing 50 crossbowmen, that's a big number of losses. And you don't want to do that. Especially like crossbowman is you make crossbowman in order to protect your seats. You don't want to go inside and lose them to kill villagers.
Yes, for anyone wondering like what kind of loss that is, that's over 6,000 resources. Because he was over 50 crossbows. It's when you put it in a number like that, it feels like a facepalmy moment. And you can see how Wam struggled to replace that. Especially when, while losing 6,000 resources, he then also spent 3,600 more for Imperial Age.
Yep. While he could have easily just invested into units and make sure that he takes down the keep. Because that keep was the only thing that was keeping him away from the productions. And if you camp on top of your opponent productions with 60 crossbowmen, it's kind of over.
Feels like it could very quickly be over at this rate. I mean, Kasva, he's getting all the unlocks. Remember, that was one big issue for him. He took a long time to get into elite status on his units. They're now coming through. And you can argue Wam's there as well, but these hand cannoneers could be his undoing. It feels like he's over-leveraging them. And keep in mind, Kasva already has the counter mangonels. And although Mongol Springles are good, they have a problem. They have to shoot straight. And these stone walls might make it problematic where they're going to be forced to fight.
Yeah, and you can just look at the economy from Wam, like the income. It cannot contest Kasva's income. And Kasva is going for like, he knows that he has the game under his bag and he's going for it. Like he's stonewalling everything. He's like, okay, I have the advantage. The only way I lose is if something crazy happens. So I'll just focus on one single point.
And some of this usually to Kasva's credit. Like, if you think about these keeps that went up, the first one maybe not needed, but the speed at which the one the sacred site went up, something I think he does that is more kind of a flavor of the player, he typically gets the increased build speed from the monastery. So that definitely is helping him when he needs to get all these walls up, get his keeps up. But I feel like a lot of players don't actually go for it still.
I've never done it.
it's I think it's 10% increased build speed, but it's like 350 resources total.
I don't see it being bad in late game scenarios.
Yeah,
I think it's actually good.
I think the tough part to justify is usually that you need to be buffed, right? So it's like it's a bit tougher for that.
But then again, if you get inspired warriors, like you want to build next to your army, so you should have prelates there. Therefore, they will probably be inspired.
Ambitious move by Wam, and it's getting more worrisome. So most of your sprint was gone. Now, he does have a lot of hand cannoneers, but we have to remember the way that ranged armies attack and how slow this hand cannoneers can be. If Kasva just pivots into mass cavalry or mass spears plus Langsneck, he can easily clean up the hand cannoneers still.
Yeah, and in general, like right now, Kasva should make a gate on his stone wall, and you can see that there is a direct route inside of Wam's main base where most of his villagers are. So if he makes a gate and just keeps ramming horsemen in, and just like keeps moving, slow moving with keeps and towers, I think he can just starve Wam to death.
Yeah, I think something that Kasva does want to be a little bit careful of, as he's now making that assault you're talking about, is with the walls. Maybe make sure that they're structured, because considering Wam did go mass hand cannoneers, he can somewhat hold those choke points if he gets on your walls and uses them against you.
But hand cannoneers and spears, they're really bad at something. Rotating in the map, yes.
They are. They're old ladies with Zimmer frames. And I think what makes it worse is, like, you can't even argue Yam somewhat offsets it, because, you know, the horsemen are still fast, but if you're talking infantry and infantry, the HRE is similar in speed as well. So you can see how quickly he dives. Despite the fact that Wam should be able to rotate fast, it just doesn't matter. And the worst part about this is that the Spearman army pays for itself in idling eco, even though it's going to die to the premium hand cannoneers. Why do I get the feeling if we check the center of the map, Kaz is going to be moving up again?
Yeah, I think he should be moving towards the sacred. Actually, he's already.
Yeah, he's going for a keep drop. Wam is quick to react here, though, and it looks like this keep is not going to go up. Kasva hasn't completed all of the walls yet. Might get punished for that, actually. Feels a little bit gluttonous the way he played this. That's so hard. Even if Wam finds a way in, he then has to get across the field. And lordy, oh, okay, so Wam, before it was crossbows over 50, now it's about to be hand cannoneers over 50. I don't mind it as long as he doesn't do with the hand cannoneers what he done with the crossbows. But I got a bad feeling.
Yeah, I think so. I think if Kasva switches into some seeds now, I think it's a really good time to switch into seeds. Because when your opponent has 50, it's actually not 50, total 60 infantry, you cannot take down buildings anymore. So you can just send horsemen all over the map while you're pushing with static defenses and seeds.
No, I mean, this is the other worrisome part. Like, your Finn front line, it feels like maybe hand cannons plus spears. Like, this is one of the civs that you don't want to be doing it against, because there is one good answer. You mentioned the horsemen now, which would have a great impact. Let's say this turns into a stage 5. Not only the Mangonels you mentioned, but Langsneck. Langsneck is another very easy answer for Kasva that can wipe not only your front line of spears, but easily clean up those hand cannons. Hand cannons that are more squishy than they used to be.
Yeah, in general, you want to have infantry-based armies when you're pushing in front of your opponent base. Like, when you're fighting like this, you cannot have an army that cannot move, because you can't move, and you have to fight in 3-4 different places. So you either split your army perfectly and control all 3 armies, or you just slowly lose the game.
You can see Wam's trying to keep up that demand by going Military Academy. This is a very late Military Academy, by the way. I feel like most players right now are grabbing this midway through Castle. It took 36 minutes for Wam to get it this game. It does kind of feel like Wam's stuck in a rut right now, right? Like, he needs to change something, because right now he's just dancing to Kasva's tune every fight. Wait, Lansdeck. Like Scrappy Dappy do, let me at him. Because once that front line is gone, they can break in. Wam, to his credit, is playing that choke point well. So it looks like Kasva's going to take a bad fight.
There were 2 Mangonels flanking from the back. Now, when you're engaging with Horseman and Landsneck, you don't want to attack from a single front. What you actually want to do is you want to have 2, maybe even 3 fronts of mixed in Horseman and Landsneck and surround your opponent army. If you push from one front, most of your Landsnecks are not even attacking.
That was the awkward part, actually, for Kasva. It's like I've seen some players utilize that strategy well, what he done there. But what you do is you run the Horseman in, and then when the Langsneck arrive, you pull the Horseman back, right? Because then the line goes in, all the spearmen go down. But it just looked like some panic. And the other thing you have to remember is when you're up against spears doing that with cavalry, they're going to get stunned on the spot. So you can't even necessarily micro your way out of a bad fight there. So a tough one. And Kasva, maybe giving a little bit of life to Wam. Wam does need to be taking these fights well, though. You know, he's gone for a configuration where if the army ever gets wiped, it could easily be GG.
Right now, Wam is fighting to stabilize. His economy is like what I like to call a pepper economy. The moment he loses his army, it's game over.
Yeah.
But he has a strong army right now.
Yeah, and the way he's being forced to play this, he's not even getting to use that strong army the true way, right? He's always just putting out fires. If these hand cannoneers had Fitbits on them, they'd look like they could run a marathon. That's really good. Worst part still is, if you keep going out on the flanks like this, like, how are you ever going aggressive?
You cannot. That's the problem with having an army like this. You want to have an army like this if you are in front of your opponent's base. If you're fighting all over the place, you just can't have an army like this. Not in this game.
Kasva?
It's so easy.
Outpost in the enemy base? Let me check what the time is. No, this looks like it's 35 minutes too late from what I'm used to seeing in the past.
Just now imagine all those hand cannoneers from the right side coming towards here. Like, by the time they're here, there's gonna be damage done.
Yeah, you'd have to play the Lord of the Rings soundtracks because it feels like they're going to be on that kind of epic troll.
On the other hand, you don't do this with Lance.
What, run into a choke point and body block each other?
Yes, against Bombard Towers.
But it's fine. They've only got 750 HP. Just kill them, right? Oh.
execution is going on there. Like those hand cannons are executing those guys running.
It's like, oh, you've got a little cannon. Oh, I got a big cannon. Let's see how that works out. Looks like they're going to be cleaned up, but Wam is struggling to maintain that 50+ momentum on the hand cannon account. Did lose several there. Going to replace them again. We have to remember that both sides are exchanging a lot of gold in these configurations. The difference, however, is that one has a lot more passive income.
And also not many gold mines left. There's one gold mine left on the right side for Wam. And after that, he has to trade.
Also, another knock-on detail of that issue of gold running out, it's not just the fighting units you're seeing right now that are going to matter. Wam has to have siege to get through the walls. So these trebuchets are going to just basically look like they're made of gold in the coming minutes.
Kasva is losing a lot of units. Now, obviously his economy is like insane right now.
Yeah.
Double the income on food. And the same amount of gold, but as we talked about, like the relics. 3 relics against 2.
Something we have to remember about the Mongols, that they're a very weird civ, right? Like, they go for this long period of the game where if they're on the defensive, it feels rough. But if they are able to escalate up to that never-ending line of outposts, it can get scary, especially the way Kaz is playing this game. As you're seeing. Cannonballs.
Kasva should have been making some seeds of himself. Like he needs to clean up those towers.
Yes.
And he should be doing what he's doing right now. Keeps with culverins next to them. Like he needs some culves to take down the trebs, and he needs some bombards to take down the towers.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think he's built anything but... Actually, I think this culverin's just been alive this whole time. He hasn't built any more siege in the last, I want to say, 10 minutes, almost.
He has 2 culverins, but he has never used them. Like I don't remember the last time I've seen the 2 culverins shoot.
I think the last time they attacked was when there was still a hole in that wall and 2 Supreme Wolves popped their head through and got chopped. And that was it. Since then, they've been just AFK behind the walls. It's, maybe this is just part of the Kasva plan. Maybe you can just see that he can afford to be in this game a lot later. But once again, I just would warn against that super hyper late game timing because I think the Mongols are deceptive due to this outpost spam. They have infinite stone, and you do have to respect those cannon placements.
Yeah, that's why you need seeds. Like bombard towers take them down so fast. That's why you need them. You really need to have some bombards, and you need to be pushing from different fronts. And the moment you realize that your opponent is splitting his army, that's when you combine your army due to the mobility that you possess, and then you try to engage that 1/3 to half of the army in order to take it down. Because Kasva should know, like he was inside Wam space, he knows that his food economy is in a really bad shape. So all he needs to do is take down that army once.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like Wam, so many layers of what he's doing here should make this game so difficult for him to even still be playing at this stage. Like we've mentioned the army configuration the whole time. We alluded to the outposts. That whole idea of this outpost spam of 1 million cannon placements is even harder to do ever since they nerfed the towers. You lost 250 HP, and you make these heavy stone investments, it's difficult to keep them alive. You're starting to see, as Kasva's finally realized, if he just torches them down, it doesn't do enough. And the ripple effect of this is if all those outposts are gone, once Wam wins this fight, there's going to be another one on the other side of the map, mister. And they are not going to be quick to arrive.
Something that could be used here is for the Mongols that give them really good answer to what Kasva is doing is actually mango dice. I know they're really, really underperforming in many scenarios, but in cases like this, mango dice can do very, very well.
Oh, no, I definitely agree with it. It's so the thing you have to remember, like everyone was like, why would I build Magadai? You know, it's got die in the name, so they do. Well, HRE players don't really build range units, so you can just kite them, right? That's what you're getting at. You just get the damage out. You don't take any in return. And although we do see some Mangonels and a Culverin here or there for Kasva, if you think of most HRE compositions in the late game, they simply don't have ranged units. It's all melee.
And just imagine that at some point you take down, like you drain all Kasva's bank, you win a good fight, or you take one of his big groups that are pushing, and you are running inside your opponent's economy. 20 Mango dice can pretty much shut down all the food income from Kasva.
Yes, especially at this stage of the game. I think some of this easier to forget. Like Magadai and Feudal looks awkward to make work. Like it's such a heavy investment. At this stage, like Castle and Beyond, their damage escalates so well, they can easily just Peppa Pig down everything they see. So I definitely agree. It's definitely an outside the box type maneuver. And it would also give Wam the ability to react to these fights, not just to dive into the base. Whereas these hand cannoneers take so long to get back in position, it never feels like he's able to go on the offensive. But as soon as I say that, for the first time, he is breaching. And there's the culverins you wanted, mister. They're finally there. Just in time to basically die. Here we go. Peel off Langsneck, not really getting the value. Now keep in mind that Wam has lost a lot of hand cannoneers and hasn't really replaced them. There's only half the mass that he has. He could go on the walls, but surprisingly enough, he chooses not to here.
All those horsemen dead.
Wow, wow, wow. Ah, who cares? You know, just
Actually,
rebundle them and
when-
call them beef.
If he went on top of the walls, he actually pretty much cancels out all the infantry, and
Yes.
he can use his opponent walls on top of his opponent walls, because if he clamps on top of them, Kasva cannot delete them. Now, Culverins cannot shoot over walls, so his trebs could take down the keep while using Kasva's own walls as a protection.
Yeah, it's what I've been waiting for. I mean, Wam, the only reason I think he maybe hesitates is Langsneck, but remember, even if it's Langsneck follow up on the rule, it's a small choke point, and they're doing 33% of their damage because of the wall buff. So I definitely agree. Like, the hand cannoneers are value to have on that wall. You know, the only thing you wish is that Kasva had connected the walls all the way around so you can make your way to the back of the base, but it's still an important area, because if you can control that area, you can go for the Sacred Site cap again. Kasva once more into the breach.
I don't understand why Kasva is keep making horsemen and men at arms.
So I kind of understood the men at arms maybe for like taking down the outposts, but that's it. I can't think of any other reason why you want them here.
I think I think I understand Kasva. He's like, I'm not mining any more gold, therefore I want to build my gold bank. The only thing that is really high value, low gold is men at arms, so I can just keep spamming them, just keep throwing them in my opponent until his hand cannoneers numbers drop down, and suddenly my men at arms could just like flood the base.
That's a fair point. And even if the men at arms, like at that stage, you're so deep in, let's say your opponent is like massing units, like blobbing units again. You can go back to the Langsneck and he doesn't have the answer to count you because you can't be back in the hand cannoneers. He also can't really be in the mangonels because once again it's a gold issue. So I think you're right. Like, that definitely seems like the idea here. And also now Kasva is building trebuchets, so he's reached that point where Wam is exhausting supply. He can't actually get a frontline push anymore. And now I wouldn't be surprised if Kasva just starts dropping walls and layering himself as he crawls into the base.
And all this time, Wam was not able to.
What on earth are you? Oh, no, maneuver arrow. No, that's a greedy mistake. Maneuver arrow is not going to fix that one for you, Wam. Far too far out here. Kasva will pinch the trebuchets, and that's a pricey loss. Remember, gold is pretty much all gone now. Only one vein on the southeast side remains.
That would be pretty much GG. That could actually. That's really painful, especially when you see the gold situation from Wam.
These type of games are the type of games where you sigh and you go, why does he keep doing this? But you have to realize once Wam went into Imperial Age, once he began to escalate hand cannoneers, he really was stuck in a lot of ways. Right? It's very difficult to make a mass transition. I think the Magadai is a cool suggestion from you, but it's such a. I'd say it'd be fair to say it's an unproven suggestion, right? Like it's not very often you see Magadai this late in the game by any players.
You cannot say I'm gonna make mango dice now. That's it. You have to predetermine that the situation. You lost your crossbowman, your opponent gets the initiative. You have to, before even start pushing, to prepare for this.
And that's one of the big issues, is that he was always in the defensive. He already had himself set up for hand cannoneers. It was very difficult to see another way of going about this. It does feel like the beginning of the end. I mean, Kasva, as long as he doesn't do any big whoopsies, right? Throw away the siege, maybe ignore a horseman dive, he should be able to weather this storm. And we're reaching a point now where when Wam's hand cannoneer line gets cleaned up this time, it's gone for good.
Yep. It's just there's no more gold for Wam. I mean, he's still gathering gold. There's still some gold on the right. I don't know how much.
I think it's 1,000
But
left.
after that,
Yeah.
but after that, like it's only the trade.
You could see trade in this game, but it's very risky for the Mongol player just because of that open battlefield. If anyone's likely to do it, it could be Kasva just because he's got the walls to hide behind, but might feel he's got just enough gold.
Wam is preparing a lot of horsemen. Now, he could either go for a landmark snipe, or he could just go in and ram them inside the eco. Like, he's hiding them. You can see them, like, moving towards the bug.
I got it. This is a metaphor. You know, outside the kebab shop on a Saturday night, you know? Everyone wants a little bit of doner.
The food situation.
It's looking pretty grim. Like he's actually not pushing enough sheep. Because if you look, you can see why. The amount of patches that got burnt down on the backside because Kasva kept targeting here. That's always been one of the weaknesses of the Mongols. They always condense their eco in one location. Makes them predictable. You know where to strike. And, speaking of strike, Wam's gone in, but this is underwhelming. Like actually running past Lang's neck in a choke point as well. Oh, okay, that's done. He's gone.
Everything's gonna die.
I mean, that felt like your big surprise attack. I'm surprised at just how underwhelming it was.
That's what happens with the worlds, right? There's no other place for him to walk in, and that's why, in cases like this, you need to have siege workshops like in 3 different places, just to open up some holes in your opponent's wall.
Yeah, and you can see it's a case of he can't easily make those holes in the wall due to the lack of gold now. I mean, these cannons look like they should do some serious damage, these cannon placements, but they don't. I mean, this is one of those games where we're 52 minutes in. There's going to be questions out like, should it have been this long? Like, where was the mistake made? I genuinely, looking back at this game, to me, it just feels like Kasva realized there was no threat. And he's just been able to get away with this very trivial way of closing out this game.
Yeah, like, what he's doing is he's playing as if he's trying to pretty much, he knows that his economy is better, so he's just throwing in units. And you will see it from the post-game statistics, that the amount of units that Kasva lost is it's just insane.
It's more or less just a bragging right at this stage. Look at all this gold I've got. Look at all this food I've got. Look at all this wood I've got. It's never running out. And the problem is, Wam, you know, if he was taking these fights close to the Kasva's base, it means something. It means he can maybe get some momentum, but he's never able to get in. These walls, they're always there. Kasva now, for some reason, with 8 trebuchets. What?
Something that kind of makes me wonder is, like, we're close to 55 minutes in. Check the amount of upgrades, the military upgrades that Wam has.
Yeah, it's been like that for a long
non-existent.
time.
Yeah, it's since the first push with the crossbow one. Like, you should not expect horsemen to do any damage when you have 0 upgrades. Like, they probably do like 4 damage to men-at-arms, maybe even less than that.
And we have to remember why he's at this point, though. It's because he was going mass hand cannoneers. Like, that does make sense. Like, you don't necessarily need these upgrades if it's just mass hand cannoneers. But it's felt irrelevant. And oh no, Kasva, no, not like this. Someone did not read the directions on the claymore, and it just blew up in their face. I've been wanting Wam to use the walls for a while, Mister. I just didn't expect it to happen like this.
And you can't delete your wall, that's another thing. You can't delete it.
You can't even attack them. Like, there's no way. It's so silly.
The poor boar, though. I think it got shot by a misclick. Wam trying to go up the gates.
What does Kasva do? The same thing he does every day. Take over the... No, it's not take over the world just yet, but slowly. He just goes to the backside. It's the eco again. Just He sees the entire hand cannoneer battalion is not defending, so he just goes in. Oh, this just feels annoying. Like, it's annoying to watch because you realize that Wam can't do anything about it, right? He's stuck.
He just can't. Like, the Mongol player has to pinpoint his opponent into one location. If he doesn't do that, then this happens. You cannot make towers everywhere. Like, you can try, but eventually they will die and keep on dying.
And they die so fast, and you're only getting 240 stone a minute. So you're not going to be able to like get 70, 80, 90 different outposts set up with cannon placements. If you could, then sure, Kasva's
There is a way. There is a way, but it's not in this game. You cannot do it in this game. But in general, there is a way to get unlimited stone with Mongols.
Yeah, I think it's more you need choke points and you need like a slow crawl out. But the issue, you can see it on the map, Wam has to spread his eco out because of the wood lines and the gold originally, like he can't play condensed.
There is an option. You know, Mongols can farm farms, right?
Yes.
They can literally farm farms for stone. If you are able to reach at that point in the game, then you literally have unlimited stone.
I just try to like, I really try to process how that raiding bounty works on farms. Like, you know, you destroy someone's farm, and I'm impressed they were even in business if it's full of rocks.
Yeah, you pick up the rocks. As soon as you destroy them, you pick up the rocks.
Like, you're a farmer, right? If you found that much stone in your fields, you're not growing anything there effectively.
Yeah, but after some years, it will be a more fertilized field because of the lack of stones.
So what you're saying is, you know, build where your farm was before because it's going to be more fertile there.
Yes.
And Mister's definitely not saying this because when he's playing Mongols, he wants you to keep building farms together for his Baganel to hit. Oh, you know, I kind of miss those days. Oh, I feel bad for saying that. I miss those days where you could, with a Maganel, shoot a mill and hit every single farm and get paid.
Yeah, that was kind of insane. The timing. There was like a certain timing with Mongols where you could hit the English guy, make 2 Mangonels in front of his face.
Yeah.
Shoot twice and then you're rich suddenly.
Refund. I especially love that one. It used to be pretty effective against 8 cherry players in Hill and Dale. Like, you just kind of waddle in and then you catch them when they're setting up farms. Boom, just all gone. Well, I think Kasva may have done it. This is... I say he may have done it. Wam still has 50 hand cannoneers. He's not going to wave that flag. But when you see Maganels patrolling in the Mongol base, it's usually not a good sign for the Mongol player.
I think Wam is going to win one or two more fights before the game finishes. I think he's going to win this fight, but he's going to might trade badly. But he has plenty of sprinkles though.
Yes. It's like win the battle, lose the war sort of situation.
We still have 12 more minutes in the game.
Now, Mr. can't see the time bar. That's actually hidden from us as well. So if he's actually on point with that, you know, we're going to read it as the guy just knows the game so well. Either that or all esports games outcomes are known and casters are part of the cabal. I shouldn't say that. People will believe that. Well, I hope no one had anywhere to be tonight, because I should point out after this, there's 2 semi-finals and a final still.
This is a long one. Actually, first game, 45 minutes?
Yeah, the first one was really long. The second one was like, it was either going to be fast or super long. This one feels unneedlessly long, but like you understand why it's needed as well, because of the style he chose.
Like, usually what you want to have in a game is you want to have winning conditions. Right now, I don't see a winning condition for Wam. I might be blind, but the only way is he somehow stabilizes, makes a million towers with cannons, and then forces Kasva into one single point of engagement. That's like the only winning condition I could see for Wam right now.
Delusion. Delusion is the win condition. Because I agree. Like it's kind of one of those situations where the actual correct analysis of the situation is Kasva would have to have an error with his keyboard where the delete key is always pressed and anything he selects dies. And it doesn't feel like that's unfair to say here. It's just... I mean, to be fair, it's actually not hard. Like, it's not that far off of what he's doing right now. He basically is more or less in a different way hitting the delete key when he keeps sending these armies in. And yet it doesn't hurt him ever. Oh, but Wam is trading! Wam is trading! Too bad it's only ever going to be one donkey. Oh.
Where are the sprinkles?
Yeah, they're on the side, but there's only 3 of them. So the mangoes, actually, they can kill him. They can actually just kill him right now. In a choke point as well. It's actually crazy when you do the maths in your head. You only have to kill, like, what is it, 4 hand cannoneers for a Mangonel to pay for itself.
4? Are you sure? Not 2?
So Mangonels are 600 resources. And then the hand cannoneers are 240. So, like, I've been generous before, so you need 3. You kill 3 and you've paid for yourself.
That's more than 3.
Yeah.
3 is more. Yeah,
yes.
720.
Yeah, but if you kill 2, you're under, right?
2.5. So you just need to damage. So basically, 2 Mangonels have to kill 5 hand cannoneers.
Yeah. You know, I never had myself down as a math man, but I realize it really does kind of paint the picture in these situations. I don't want to know what the math throwaway was on that many horsemen, but I do know.
Makes things a lot easier
to
understand.
That's what I realized, because you know what I'm talking about with this. Like when you're pro, you play a game a lot, you do things on feeling.
Yeah, experience. Like you basically experience a lot of things, and if you imprint them into your subconscious, and then therefore you do not think to do it again. You just know that this should work because I've already done it. It already happened to me.
And that's the thing. Like, I know there's a lot of players who wouldn't be able to tell me like the cost of a hand cannoneer, maybe, or an archer or something. Like, I think BC was one of the ones who said, you know, he doesn't remember the cost of like an archer. He just knows how many villages he needs. Whereas I guess like you're more ingrained in the numbers as well because of the extra theory crafting time you have, right?
Yeah. Like I've played a lot of 6, 7, 8, 9-minute games in my head. A lot of games, like a lot of games. After that, you cannot predict anything.
So there you go, guys. If you want to beat Mista, you just have to survive 10 minutes. And then it all begins to unravel. Actually,
let's see, 7 more minutes.
Kind of curious here, Mista. Like, do you get frustrated when a game goes this late? Like, even if you're the guy being the aggressor, do you just get tired of this?
Yes, really, really, really tired. Especially because I don't have many games like this. Like, it's... So ideally, if I have, like, let's say, 2 hours to play or 1 hour to play, and I end up playing a game like this, I feel like I've done nothing with my life.
The best part is, there's players, without naming names, who feel like they've done everything with their life when they get a game this pointless. There is a strategic layer to it, right? Like, if you are the psychopath that enjoys this, then you actually get a, like, one-up in a tournament environment because you know nobody else is enjoying this.
It's really hard to play games like this because the only way to practice games like this is playing games like this. You can have goals, you can have notes, you can do whatever you like in order to prepare yourself to something like this, but you can't. You just have to keep playing games like this in order to get better at this scenario, because this scenario has nothing to do with like the first 20 minutes in the game, like literally nothing.
I can hear the frustration in your voice. Having to play these type of games over and over and over. Right now, you're doing the maths again, aren't you? Like, I could do... I'm going my 20-minute finishes. I could do 3 times the amount of games compared to this. 4 times the amount of games.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I just... Like, obviously, in tournaments, you're gonna need this. Like, if you have 0 practice in games like this, you will end up in the situation where you have to play a game like this, and the moment the game just goes later, and you will start to feel like hopeless because you just don't know what to do, and sometimes even your hand and brain just cannot you know, they just can't work together anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I have that issue within 10 minutes, so yeah, I don't know how people hold on for an hour, mate. But the worrying part as well is, and you can actually see this by the way, I think you can even see it in this one, is that with theory crafting ways maybe out of this, or the ways you kind of have to, but you do get stuck in a rut, and I feel like you see it when you get to this stage in the game. Transitions that make sense are on like a delay being received by the player, right? Like, obviously I have God Vision, but even outside of God Vision, if you were calmly watching this from the sideline as a player not playing it, you talk about transitions you can make at X minute, but then you'd have to add on an extra 5 minutes for the player in the moment to realize that.
Mm-hmm.
Just feels like every 2 minutes we're just going and checking Wam's pulse to see if he's... Okay, is the trade above 5? Because I feel like every time it started to get going, it's died. Yeah, Khan's dead. Cool, GG, Wam.
It's really hard to set up a trade when you're the defender.
He's got
When you're
13.
defending.
I mean, that's more than I actually expected. Wait, are those more oh, no. The walls are coming in. The map is getting very small now.
I just want Wam to hold on for 4 more minutes so I can be a sage.
So it may end up just being 7 more minutes. The sacred sites are captured. Yeah.
Yeah, but the Wam will not try to fight the sacred site.
Do you really think he can reach a sacred site with what he's got
I think
left?
Wam is gonna resign in 3 minutes.
Okay. I mean, he's barely getting through outpost now. Don't know if
It's
anyone's
over the
told him
food.
this.
There's no more food. There's no more food. He doesn't have food income. He's losing units and he's not replenishing anymore.
Do you ever get this? Like, this is the type of game where I know it's match point, but you have to wonder, like, where Wam's, like, what would be his fault and how he recovers this?
Right now, Wam is feeling kinda hopeless, but he probably has one hope: set up the trade so that I can start making the expensive units again. Right?
Got it.
And he has to do that. He's on a timer right now, so he feels that there is a chance, but he knows that that window is really small, and requires Kasva to keep throwing units and him getting good engagements and Kasva making the bad decisions. On the other side, Kasva is like, I'm winning this, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'll just keep zerging non-stop. Cheap crap thrown at you non-stop. Now, the walls did go up fully from Kasva, which is kind of surprising considering it would just prevent Wam from even really doing this. Wam, who's up to 4 trebuchets, if those ever go down, he's in trouble. And oh no, the lag sticker. Well, that's it. I mean, this is it. Hand cannoneers are gone. This should be the point where Wam accepts his fate. Because there's no way he's getting anywhere near there without the gunpowder infantry.
Yeah. It's all about when he's gonna press the resign button, right? He still has 1.1 minute and 40 seconds.
That could be like a next level thing. If they actually made resign a button and players intentionally removed it from their keyboards, they always had to stick it out.
Imagine clicking it by mistake.
That's the other reason they remove it. I mean, that's the tough thing. Like in some games, because you have all chat type formats, if you type GG, it's actually valid. So if you like BM type GG, you just GG'd your team.
If Wam resigns at 1, 10, and 12, it will be exactly 12 minutes, by the way.
Wow. So you're really, you like, is that what you've just been focused on the most this whole time? You're like, how right can I be?
Yes, that's very exciting for me. I made a prediction. I really love predictions.
Nah, they're fun. The best part is like when you're wrong in some way, you get to explain the reason why it was wrong as well, which is always good.
Calculated predictions, though. Okay, please go ahead.
This is... I don't know, man. I feel like Wam is not giving up until that sacred site timer ticks. Like, every moment where we've looked and gone, that should be a GG. That would be the moment where I'd call the game. That's the moment where every player, like, on the record would have called the game. Wam's that guy who keeps getting up. He's Captain America right now. He can do this all day. He's still going to lose, but...
Never mind. He will not push the button.
Yeah, you saw the spearman, you're like, oh, okay.
yeah, he will not.
Just alright, people, we do definitely have more series coming up after this. Just an update from what's happening elsewhere. Wam is trying to keep the Canadian dream alive, as Marine Lord did 2-0 his bro. Wam, if he can somehow recover this, will face off against Marine Lord. Otherwise, it's going to be Kasva. Meanwhile, on the other side, TheMista was able to take out Lenok 2-1. So Vortex and TheMista are on standby, waiting to begin their series. Right now, watching this game, going, why won't they finish? In fact, I wonder if maybe they have actually begun. I think we might be triggering at the same time. I'll get an update on that. Because we do have a best of 5 after the semi-final best of 3s.
We have a long day ahead of us.
Yeah. You hopped on for your first time casting me, and this is what you get treated to, bud. Well, it looks like you were wrong, mister. Would you like to put in a new prediction?
There's no more predictions.
Yeah, it's too easy now. You can see the Sacred Site timer, you can see the remaining time. That's too simple of a maths target for Mister. He doesn't care for it. I'm kind of wondering if Kasva feels good or bad after this, though. Like, he has so many more games to play today if he wants his deep run to secure.
Kasva is a player who plays a lot. I don't think
He
will
does.
affect him.
That's true. And in fairness to those who haven't like caught Kaz in the past, like this guy frequently cues into players like Beastie that love the late game. I've watched Kasva go back to back to back to back in the pub matchmaking with hour-plus long games every time. And he'll still keep going until he's put his 12 hours in for the day.
One more minute.
This is where we're at. Epic countdown. 10, 9, 8. Okay, no, I'm jumping the gun. We're a little bit away from that, but I mean, credit to Kasva. It may not be the flashiest way to win a game of AOE4, but he understands what's at stake here, right? We have to remember this is a high-pressure environment for him, and Kasva has fallen victim to not playing his style time and time again in those environments in the weeklies and the monthlies. This time around, he sets the pace, he controls the pace. Well, it might not be the sexiest looking win. It is a win that gets him one step closer to a guaranteed slot in Wololo, courtesy of the weekly point standings.
That's a lot of trips.
That is actually, good lord, 8. The problem is not the trap. It's how do you deal with Lang's neck? I don't think you do. In fact, I'm pretty sure as soon as you get through the Horsemen, the entire Mongol army is going to disappear. A magician's trick.
Imagine if at least one of them hit mangonels.
If only. You're asking too much. It's not like Wam is floating 2k gold right now.
Because the way the walls are, you can always find a spot where your mangonel can shoot without being countered.
Finally. He decided that is enough. GG gets called. Kasva will take the deciding game and move on to the semi-finals against Marine Lord.
By the way, I think Kaspa also deleted villagers.
Oh, is it? I mean, why not? Let's be real here. Wam is trying to reach those villagers all game. You might as well help him.
160,000 food.
Do you want to look at the how many kills? I think that's really what we see. How many?
Yeah,
how many were discarded here? 1,635 units. We were getting closer and closer to 3,000 units overall dead in this game. I mean, what can you say? I feel like we broke down most things you can say about this game specifically. Seems like the rest of the series didn't go this long. It's curious to see, what Wam's thought process was with that Imperial Age play. Because it feels like there was two elements to this that lost him control of the game, right? You mentioned the crossbow dive, but then the Imperial as well.